Get your phone out of my
Hey,
face.
this is the second podcast that we made. We made the first one about a month or so ago. We're starting a new project. We're writing a book called Saving Karrie, where this time last year we were called to Utah to go up and help my little granddaughter Puck get out of a mess that she was in with the Child Protective Services and the local laws that be. Ted and I got in a car. We drove up there and we encountered the events that ended up helping save the little girl, and we also saved some other children, and we changed a little bit of the way they think. Uh, Even though the articles came out and our distributors and our publishers, we never actually sat down and openly discussed the events of our trips to Utah until yesterday. I put a little teaser up for a group of 54 people to see what they thought, and they really liked it. So we decided to write a book in the first person from our different viewpoints of the events in Brigham City, Utah, October, November of 2017. Your thoughts?
It's a book about a couple of guys who are not all that ordinary, but certainly ordinary enough, who went to a fairly unordinary place and faced larger than life issues and came out victorious. It's David and Goliath. And only it's David and Goliath it's chicken fried and dipped in glitter. But there's the book is going to have action, because the story has action. The book is going to have drama because the story has drama. It's got little girls that are uh, at risk for and who have been kidnapped and sold and trafficked, and it's about the abuse. It's about the rank abuse of power. It's as gripping as anything you'll read about in a Tom Clancy novel. It is, and yet it is us. It's your neighbors. It's your ordinary citizens, not 007, not Superman. We didn't even have Batman or Robin along for them. I just think that you wanted to talk about the book, and so the book is about a lot of different people and things, and Joe is one of a Vietnam War hero, uh, whose accomplishments will be documented in the book, uh, and whose last act of heroism was to provide a home, for those five kids. He took in a widow and five, what you may as well call orphans,
Yep.
and gave them a home, and he was loving. He was, he was patient. He was kind. He was involved. He, so yeah, we want you to get to know Joe Tarajos as a part of our book. We want you to we want you to to see one of the things about this book that I think will be great. I think there are a number of things that'll be great about it, but one of the things that I think that you'll see in this book that'll make it great, is the scale of human life. So often we're eclipsed by the movies, by books, by series like Spartacus, and where larger than life people face smaller than life issues and,
Yeah.
and manage to do pretty well. God's movies about gods and demigods and stuff, and it reduces the scale of human life to such an extent that we ourselves don't understand the quiet heroism of our own lives, and just how important every small act that we engage in actually is. It actually has a great deal of importance in the larger scale of
And
things.
Joe played into a lot of this. In fact, he got a saber upon retirement, which is not usual. He was presented with a saber, and it hung on his wall with all of his awards on the opposite wall of the basement. And Joe was a big presence to us up there. In fact, there were a couple of presents. studying one today. We became aware of Porter Rockwell when we were up there, who's one of my ancestors. I didn't know that at the time. What was happening, and I asked the lawyer, John, uh, I said, John, what happened to the morality of your people? What would happen if Porter Rockwell was to ride his horse through that park about 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night? And he said, we need a snowplow to scrape up all the bodies. Yeah. What happened to your culture, man?
Well, you know, another thing that I hope that comes through in the book is the permanence of what Brigham Young created. Brigham City, Utah, is a place that when you go and walk the streets of it, when you when you get out and breathe the air at the foot of and you are at the foot of the mountains. You're at the foot of several mountains when you're in Brigham City, and they're so big. The mountains are so big that there's an optical illusion. You know, as you're walking toward the mountain, it appears that you're walking away from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how big they are. Don't ever try to use a mountain as a landmark, because there's a mountain everywhere you turn in that city, and I'm telling you, what the bones of Brigham City, the original Brigham City, the way it's laid out in those wards, so geometrically precise, the precise placement of both of the temples, those things are not things that maybe your mind is actively saying to you in your head, but your mind is talking at some level or another to the rest of you, and informing you of the fact that you're standing on something ancient, and that there's some kind of power in the way that it was laid out, and the permanence of it. You know that if you came along and just sucked up all the loose earth, that there would be some geometric pattern that you were standing on top of, that was laid out that way for a purpose. And Brigham City, Utah, is like no other city I've ever been in. It has a small town feel to it, from one end to the other. There's no point in Brigham City in which you feel like you're in a large place.
And when you go to Layton or Ogden or Bountiful, it's all the people there. When you say bring up Brigham City, they kind of have a reverence, kind of an awe, kind of you don't want to be there kind of thing, you know.
It's like living in Jerusalem, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's a lot like living in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And the people are friendly for the most part. And there are some things that leak out in this book, and it's not going to be very popular. That when Theo and I think we were going into a restaurant, looked a little greasy spoon up there, eat breakfast. I looked over at his big round table, and there's an old guy sitting there, and there's about 4 or 5 young women, you know, one real young woman with a baby on her hip, and about 5 or 6, 7 kids.
All of them kind of looked alike too.
Yeah, they all look alike. Yeah,
they're all blonde and
all blonde, with big bright smiles. You know.
Yeah, it looked like some missed something college or
yeah.
another. Yeah.
I said, Theo, look over there. You know what that is? And he looked and, what's that? I said, polygamy. And just like that, right out in front. Mm-hmm.
And it's true.
Yeah,
you go to the Walmart and a minivan pulls up, and here come 3 or 4 sister wives, herding 5 or 6 kids in front of them. Mm-hmm. One of them will be, an older person, maybe 60, and the youngest of them will be maybe 20. And
that would be the baby making wife, by the way.
Well, because the 60-year-old wife is not going to be a baby maker. What amazes me is that the 60-year-old man can be a baby maker. That's kind of amazing to me. Polygamy is right out in the open in Brigham City. It's not a guessing game. It's not a shell game. They're not hiding anything. I guess is what.
Not at all. And that's the situation we rode into. All right, got up there. Now, what they were basically doing, give you an outline of what the book's going to thing. I brought up the Pretty Girls Club. The Pretty Girls Club was a lure, was a hook. And we never could draw a direct connection with who originated that, but we got some pretty good ideas, and you'll read about it in the book. But anyway, the girls would end up going over to a place called Lindsay Park after dark, where they would meet little girlfriends and then they would meet some big friends. Well, eventually it rolls around. Two girls the year before, the CPS got involved because bad things were happening to them at their house and they were removed from their house. And they ended up in places like St. George and were fostered out to one of those rather large, diverse families. Okay? And there was just too many coincidences between what happened to the other little girls and what was going to happen to our little girl. Okay? And that's where the book springs from, and that and we're going to divulge the whole thing to you here. But it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. We met people that you wouldn't believe still exist. We met them. We've seen them all. Uh, we met them. I can't say any more like that. I don't want to divulge the contents of the book too much, but it's a Wild West show, and they are very entrenched in their beliefs, including blood atonement, which uh, people here don't know what that means. In some of their belief sets up there, if you're a sinner doing bad things and they kill you and your blood touches the ground, that forgives you and you can go to the celestial kingdom, Heavenly Father, and they still believe that. They still believe that. They also don't believe in obeying the United States law. They don't believe in that a whole lot. They believe in obeying.
They never have.
They obey God's law. God's law.
They never have. Salt Lake City is enduring. And I say enduring for them. By that I mean that they are. The fact that they have a lesbian mayor is not something that would cause somebody to have to endure it necessarily. But if you're a Salt Lake City Utahan, it isn't. You're having to endure it.
You're absolutely having to endure it.
The state of Utah got together. Mitt Romney put together, what was it, $10 million to go to California and fight Proposition
8.
Yeah, Prop 8. Which allowed gay people to get married. Gay people had gotten the right to marry. So they came up with Prop 8, which would do away with gay marriage, and Mitt Romney and the state of Utah put together about $10 million. Went to California, and in retaliation for that, I'll tell you something: the gay community cannot get together enough money to do something about a senator or a president. But they can darn sure get enough money together to get a mayor elected in Salt Lake City. That's what they did. And curiously enough, this had a really negative effect on the CPS. You would have thought that having a female influence on the CPS would have been a positive thing, but it turned out to be a very negative thing. And in fact, things have gotten much worse there since we left. They've developed therapeutic programs for children in foster care that they call cookie cutter programs, which are basically spaces that are rented in malls, and foster parents can just dump their foster kids in there for about 8 or 10 hours, and the state pays for it, and then the foster parents come back and take the kids home and have 14 to 16 hours with the kids doing whatever foster kids do with their kids. I used to be a contract worker for CPS in Texas, so I can tell you that I was in and out of foster homes and in and out of adoptive homes, and so I know a lot about. And I ran my own RTC for a while. I ran a residential treatment center for a while too, and these places are not rehabilitative to children, and the idea of just taking them to a space in a mall and dumping them off where they're really given minimal supervision. I mean, it's terrible. The people who work there don't even have to have a high school diploma to work there. The people who run the place have high school diplomas. Their social workers, honest to goodness, are interns. They're recent high school graduates, that are taking their preliminary courses. They haven't even taken a social work course at the college level, and yet they're being given the power to go into people's homes, make determinations on the basis of their own perceptions, without any kind of guidelines to work with, that have to do whether or not the child is going to remain in the home. And then foster placement is made by a different group of people who have a different agenda.
And they don't know anything about psychology that to speak of.
Not a word of it.
Puck, my granddaughter, she has another little tiny problem. She has got reactive attachment disorder. Okay, and she's a good one. She's a good one. She has very little conscience because of her being. When these children are mistreated in foster care, the key word is detachment. They detach from the human race. We become objects.
Well, reactive attachment disorder happens at around age 2. It happens before age 2, and so Puck got her rad. We'll just call it rad. That's another great thing about this book, by the way. One of the things that you'll learn about in the book is reactive attachment disorder.
Indeed.
Rad. And the reason for that is because we are currently in the shadow of a towering tsunami of reactive attachment disorder a generation of children with reactive attachment disorder. And it comes about because when the child is not given any attention or love when they're infants. Sadly, I say that with great sadness because I'm talking about people I know and care about when I'm talking about this. But the simple fact of the matter is that Puck did not receive any attention. They'd leave her in that
Black room.
I'm talking about after she was born, Billy. I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking about right after she was born. Her father was a methamphetamine addict who was never home, and when he was home, he wasn't home. And her mother, who was just a child herself, was frustrated beyond. She was given a situation she could not cope with, and she didn't know or want to ask for help with that problem. And so what happened is that between the ages of 0 and 2, the human being that would become Karrie never developed the correct. Never developed neural pathways in the way that people normally develop them. So to make a long story short, if a normal child sees an old lady getting into her SUV and she's got her purse on the ground as she's putting her groceries in the car, a normal child might do anything from walk past it without paying much attention to stopping to help the old lady put her groceries in the car and help her out. Karrie's response would be to grab the purse and run.
Right.
And if the old lady put up a fuss, to give her a good clout across the head with the purse, and that's simply because she does not attach any consequence to her actions where other people are concerned. We're not real to her. We're just not real to her. You probably are the only real person in her life.
We've had 2 fires here in this house, and
one of them was set to kill him.
Yeah, she decided to go ahead and do away with me. One was a catfish fire where it seemed like an accident. Now this is one thing. When we say they're rad, we're not saying they're stupid. Okay, she took the trouble of making sure. I've been up for 2 days waiting on them to get here from Utah, and I was tired. She took the trouble of getting me relaxed on the porch while the catfish grease was heating up. And the minute my eyes closed just a little bit, she took some cold water and threw it in the grease because she learned that would cause a fire. And she blew the cabinets off the wall. She melted the microwave down on the floor. There was a couple of suitcases that was left by someone under the kitchen table, and it melted them too. There are some cracks in the Spanish tile. The heat was so intense, okay? The second time, and we haven't figured out what our motivation was here, but I was again on the porch doing some work. and it was 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. She said, you need to go to bed, Papa. You look tired. And I said, no, I got to finish this. And she kept after me and kept after me. I said, well, maybe she's right. I am. So I said, well, I'll go to bed. And I walked through the area over there, and I saw her lay on her little pallet in front of the TV. I took the new baby, which was the youngest boy, and Cleo the dog with me back there to the bedroom, because they wanted to come back and have hot shocky in the morning. We laid down and closed our eyes, and within less than 5 minutes, the other brother, Bobby, was yelling, I smell smoke. She had gotten down the hall, gotten in the closet in the back bedroom back here, and by the time I got up and was able to get to that door and open it, the room was in full blaze. She had completely destroyed the room. Now, she did this, she said, because we wouldn't give her a Dr. Pepper that night. That was her official reason, okay? But she later on said, I'm the one that didn't give her the Dr. Pepper. And she positioned the fire so that as it spread, it would spread into my bedroom immediately. But she loves me. That's a rad.
Well, and the one of the reasons you would think that with a diagnosis like reactive attachment disorder, that at some point in the chain, in the clinical chain, one of the clinicians that read through her notes and realized that she had this would have brought to an immediate halt the CPS proceedings, because they would have known that they were dealing with the type of human being that exists outside the norm. Billy and I are revving our engines up to get another thing off the ground, and that is we want to start a nationwide reactive attachment disorder awareness campaign. And one of the reasons for it is because in formulating the formulating the diagnostic need criteria to put Puck in a residential treatment center, which is what we needed to do to get her out of the clutches of some incompetent, evil people. Just think of the bad people in Orphan Annie or 101 Dalmatians, and that's what these people are like.
And they tried everything they could. The minute we realized what they were doing, and we went in for the kill to end their court case, which we did, they were still grabbing for the girl.
They were.
They're still
They
grabbing.
were that afternoon, after the court case had been dismissed, they came over to pick up the girl.
To pick up the girl.
Yeah. Then they wanted to put people in the house, and they wanted to do this and that, and it took us. We wound up having to hit them a lot harder than we should have had to hit them. I myself didn't want to do it. Now Billy loves hitting people, so so if there's anybody that needs to be hit, usually I'll just stand to one side and let Billy wear himself out.
That was what that lawyer.
But I had to, we had to punch them a lot harder than they should have needed punching.
They absolutely wouldn't stop. What Ted just said is exactly true. When we go into court, the Attorney General stands down. The state has decided not to go forward with this case, Your Honor. Bam, it's over. They walked right out of the courtroom, drove straight to the house to pick the girl up. What happened in court had no bearing on any of their plans. They, quote unquote, we can pick a child up anytime we want.
Yeah, that's a quote.
Mm-hmm.
That's a quote.
Anytime we want, for any reason.
Yeah.
Well, what they didn't understand is that we did a little bit different strategy. We stuck her on the first nonstop flight back to Austin and put her in the RTC. With the knowledge of the Texas CPS, and we cannot tell you our contacts, okay, because these people are friends.
Oh no!
But
No.
believe me, they knew right where she was at, and they have a thin blue line in front of the Utah CPS that says you don't cross over this side. You don't need to be coming around here. And they protected her there.
They nullified they nullified an agreement that exists between all states.
Just like
The
that.
state of Texas nullified an agreement that exists between all states that says that if one of your cases comes into our state, then we'll take that case over. They just said, nah, we don't think so. You're crazy. and they were that they did find a CPS worker in Texas that had been previously involved with the family that was crazy. She wasn't a CPS worker at the time of this happened. She'd been fired. Who said, "Yeah, I'll get on an airplane." They were going to bring a disgraced Texas CPS officer up there to testify in court. But what stopped them is they couldn't afford the plane ticket.
Yeah.
So, too bad they didn't get their psycho.
Now, these people are working out of a Dairy Queen, mind you. I mean, we're not talking high-rise buildings with nice furniture,
They combined the district attorney's office along with the attorney general's office, along with the CPS office. Can you imagine that? The enforcement arm of the law is one desk away from the investigative arm of the law.
And
That's great.
Now, you know about Puck being a rat, okay? So she's gonna make some stuff up. One of the things she told her little girlfriend was, "If I don't show up for school, Mommy has killed me with big sticks and knives, and she's gonna hide my body in the closet." Well, that leaked back over to the principal of the school, which leaked over to the CPS, and CPS went over, grabbed the right honorable detective, and they show up on Pam's doorstep with a blue light looking for sperm and brain matter, and they looked all over the house for sperm and brain matter. Of course, they didn't find any.
Well, it's probably the first time they'd ever turned it on.
Yeah, well, I don't think he actually was able to turn it on. I heard him say
maybe not.
He did not know.
Maybe not.
Obviously, this guy didn't live in the '60s when we used to have those glowing posters in it.
We're going to be putting a detective, a picture of this detective that he posted on his own Facebook page, in at least in whatever we publish on this site.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we like to put images on our online stuff. So
we said some things.
He looks just like Curly on the Three Stooges.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
said
kidding
some
you.
things like that. Hey, you're the detective that came over to the house with the blue light looking for sperm cells and brain matter. Now, doing it, running, protecting the law. If you shine that light up your ass, you might have found some.
Well, yeah,
I had my moments.
he does. Let me tell you, after a couple of trips up and down the Escalante with him, I can tell you he has his moments.
And I'm a tourist. Well, I found where Sundance Kid was and all that stuff.
We think we're excited about writing the book, and we've both written. He and I are both writers, and so the idea of what we're doing is pretty scary. But in order that you, the reader, get the truest version of what happened, the way we're writing it is literally, I write a chapter, and then Bill writes a chapter, and then I write a chapter, and then Bill writes a chapter, and so what you'll get may be contrasting in some ways, but they won't disagree with each other.
No, and we'll remind each other of the events. We met some interesting people up there that we'll be bringing up to you. And I spoke to Puck today, and she wants to chime in and tell us some details about Lindsay Park that she told nobody else. So we'll come up with some little.
We blew that place up.
Ooh.
I mean, it was like well, it wasn't literally like with pyrotechnic explosives or anything like that, but that was a well, one of the things that happened that just when I still look back at it and I think to myself, did I see that in a movie or did I read that in a book or did that really happen? Was when we got there, it was late and I was bushed, and I mean I'm not kidding. I was out of it because we drove straight through, and got lost on the way. So we came in through Colorado and Wyoming, instead of going straight up through Arizona into Utah. But so I was really out of it. I was really tired, and I said, well, we were putting stuff away, And I said, look, so that I know where we're going to start in the morning, and do you have uh, a copy of the the sex offender registries, points of location for sex offenders in the area? And so Billy said, yeah, and he dug it up out of one of his files, and he put it out there, and we looked at it, and it looked like this spot where we were, right where we were, and then spreading out and mainly in the north and west direction, but really kind of in all directions, was this case of the measles. I mean, we counted the dots, and now this is what's the population of Brigham City?
15,000.
15,000 people. Okay, 15,000 people out of a population of 15,000 people. They had over 420. It was 427 registered sex offenders living in this like 1 square mile area. And I told Billy, I said, they got to be on either side of us.
In the basement. They're in the building.
They got, yeah. There might be some of them living right here in the house with us, and so I got off my sorry duff, and took a thermal imaging device down to that park, and went down to the park. Billy has a little bit of trouble getting around, so stuff involving footwork is usually my job. So this was my job. I went out this thermal imaging camera, and found lots of assignations going on. Lots of people hanging around in the bushes, and even a couple of guys up in trees. And as I was sitting there scanning the whole thing, I was using the corner of the bathroom, the women's bathroom, to stand behind, because the street was behind me this way, and I was in the shadow, and the door to the women's bathroom opens up, and a kid and a grown man come out of the women's bathroom together, and so that's what we were looking at. We were looking at this town is not Sodom and Gomorrah. This town does not welcome the pedophiles that infest it.
They don't welcome coffee drinkers.
They don't welcome anybody. They weren't terribly welcoming of us. But the fact of the matter is that they allow it to go on. I don't know why. They could do anything about it anytime they wanted to. They've got their own Gestapo that are pretty efficient. The bunch of people that they call Danites.
Oh, Danites.
Billy and I had a couple of encounters with them that we're gonna write about in the story, that are exciting, part of the action. They are
They're the real deal.
they're nothing. They are nothing to be disrespected. You don't approach them with the idea that you're on the side of right, and so therefore you're gonna come out ahead.
That's one thing.
You better be quick.
As sincere as we were, and as unafraid as we were, when we won the case and saved my granddaughter, we immediately left Brigham City, because we knew that the Danites wouldn't be tolerating us much longer.
Well, they told us to get out.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we did.
Hey, where is time gone?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to have a cup of coffee. No, okay, but we're gone.
Yeah. They were once. I think they were glad that we solved the problem the way that we did. They weren't particularly happy about what was going on either.
No, they were shocked. They were shocked. And we told them, when we were talking to them the first time, and finally we asked them, "What are you doing here?" And so, "That's what we're doing here, to see what you're doing here. What are you doing in our town?" And we told them, we've got the suspicions. What do you think these people are doing? I said, "They are buying and selling your little girls to St. George. And to give these boys respect where respect's due, that's when they put their feet flat on the ground and lean forward."
Yeah, that's true.
That's okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's when the guy with the dark hair took his fingers off the butt of his gun, and
Yeah, that was nice. That was very nice. See, these are the people we're telling you about that still exist. That makes the book good. Of course, now, if you go to Brigham City, what you'll hear is they have the biggest bird sanctuary in the world, and the Golden Spike is just right over there. And Brother Brigham actually gave a commencement speech right there in that town that blessed the original temple and all that.
As far as um, what do they call the unwashed among us?
We're Gentiles.
Gentiles.
We're Gentiles.
As far as Gentiles are allowed to go, you'll be able to visit the temple. But there'll be a velvet rope past which you can't go.
That's right. But you know, the one thing I remember, and I think about the word Brigham City is named after Brigham Young, and really it's kind of one of my mottos, but it's kind of brutal and everything. He said one time he did something atrocious, and an old deacon, one of the quorum of the 12 or whatever they want to call it, come up and a little bowler hat in his hand and says, "Vengeance is mine," said the Lord, Brother Brigham. And Brigham said, "I'll go with that, but I do take a little myself." And that's their attitude.
In order to get some questions answered by the police, I had to go back to the house, change into take off my tie, open the top couple of buttons on my shirt, and put on a thermal underwear, so that I would look like a Mormon.
They got a thing called the little smile. If you see the little smile, you know they're temple. There's temple, and then there's not so temple.
Yeah.
And they can sniff you out. I believe they can.
Oh yeah.
You got to learn the handshakes and all that kind of
It
stuff.
wasn't. It took them 3 days to figure out I wasn't a long underwear Mormon, and that's when that cop pulled up next to me with the Danite in the back seat, and the Danite rolls the window down and says, "I guess you're wearing that long underwear because it's getting pretty cool outside." And I said, "Yeah, sure. Isn't that why everybody's doing it?" And he gave me a smile, and he just rolled his window back up, and they drove on. But he was letting me know that they'd figured out I wasn't a Mormon. But by then I'd already been able to interview the police lieutenant and some of the. Anytime the police want to keep information from you, all they have to do is open up a filing drawer, take the folder involving the information that you've got, and transfer it to another filing drawer that says open cases. So even if it's a closed case, they can move it into the open cases file, and that officially makes it an open case, and they can't talk to you about it. So anyway, that's that. So we'd like to try this book on your site. It is your site. So if any of you object to that, or if there are any objections to that, I'd like to know. I want to make sure we're not, just putting things out on people's page that litter it.
This will be interesting to anyone that's come up against a CPS. This is an extreme. I guarantee you, after you read this book, you will never have a CPS case like this one. You'll never see it. This is an extreme of how far things can go when they're just allowed to go. But it is about time to take a break.
It is. I wanted to say one last thing, and that is this. It occurs to me that Billy's told me a little bit about you guys and your purpose, which centers around abuses committed by a person I also know by the name of Amy Sharon. And it may occur to some of you, well, now wait a minute, you're talking about going and saving this mentally ill person, and I think I think what you're doing is opening up the possibility that she can go out and victimize people like we've been victimized by Amy. And I want to say first off, our purpose in saving Puck is that she's a little girl. She's not a grown person. She's got her share of victims. I won't go into any detail on that, but she deserves a chance. She deserves a chance to grow out of and what she is and into something else, and she's making strides right now. She's getting better right now as we speak. So I may chime in on one of these podcasts about Amy. I have some contact with Amy, and certainly as a psychotherapist, had plenty of contact with people who have uh, the same problems that afflict Amy. So um,
Yeah,
I may have some things to say about that. Some of them maybe even be useful to you guys in understanding Amy and understanding your own reaction to her, and maybe even finding a solution to what you see as an active problem.
and as far as the since we're on the subject anyway, the thievery I supposedly committed. Before we made this video, we cleaned up and we had a little sandwich. Ted had to go and use the restroom back down the hall, and he calls. He says, "I see you've got most of the smell out already from the last fire." Okay, so see, the fires were not a lie. They were not a lie.
Oh no,
Absolutely not.
the fires were totally real.
Very real. We're sitting in a house that this
Fire is real.
Yeah, fire real.
Yeah.
Man, but
Sometimes be Richard Pryor when he came out and he had set his arm on fire.
yeah.
And he looked down at it and he goes, "I'm on fire! I'm on fire! Fire!" He says, "Yeah, fire is very.
And it's
I can't believe this house did not burn down, guys. I'm not kidding you. If you had seen the fire, and if you could see it now, you'd say, "Well, what fire?"
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that this house is still standing. That was a very efficient fire.
When I opened that door, and now get this now, she was in the fire. Both times she was in the fire. She's never been burned.
Well, that's the never never.
That's a never never. When I opened that door, she ran between my legs. She emerged from the fire. It's the weirdest thing you ever saw in your life. But they were real, and it did burn. The stuff in the kitchen was just demolished and everything like that. But now I made a misstatement saying that no, I didn't even insinuate no one had ever looked at Amy's stuff in the shed, because someone most certainly stuck his head in there and looked at it.
Oh yeah, I went in and looked at it.
He looked at it.
I actually inventoried it.
Mm-hmm.
So, to the extent that I could, there were so many small boxes with small objects.
But there were no crates of films, crates of unpublished songs, certainly no boxes of...
My interest in doing it was making sure there wasn't anything illegal in there, and also compiling a list of items that could be compared against recent burglaries in the Houston area.
Mm-hmm.
Because my feeling about it is that they had committed some burglaries, at least one, if not multiple burglaries, and brought that U-Haul trailer down full of their swag.
Because they did not want to take the U-Haul trailer back to its original port.
No.
They said, well, we got to turn it in up here. Well, look, you've got a vehicle. I'll give you some gas money, and you can simply drive your crap back to Houston. They did not want to do that under any circumstances.
No, I can't prove it. But the part of me that operates on the evidence that exists, absent the evidence that you need to convict, tells me that was stuff they stole from other people.
I think so. And like the big huge diamond that her grandmother supposedly gave her, and we took that over to Zales and found out it was just. Well, I'm saying that's what the jeweler.
That's a technical realtor term. He was a realtor at one time, so
yeah,
But
he was a jeweler at Zales, and that's what he told her. It's that way. What does that mean? It means it's got black spots in it. It's worthless. It's not worth anything.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you found anything or took anything to have it.
She had it in her truck.
She had it in her truck.
She had that one in her truck.
She kept it close to her.
Oh, yeah. And of course, she just accidentally laid it around in a motel room some short time ago, and someone stole it. And of course, she's going to file very famous charges on him.
Well, I wouldn't say that. This is what I'll say: if it was not stolen, and that was the sole remaining bundle of objects that Amy Sharon that represented Amy Sharon's life, then it has as much value as whatever our little kit is that we carry around in our lives. It has the same value. I place a high value
I understand
on my stuff, but there's a reason they call it junk or crap or whatever. It's because to other people, it has
It's
no value.
just crap.
Yeah.
I didn't expect her to show up and try to move in. She wanted the place to stay for a couple of weeks. When he showed up with the truck, I found out she rented the truck. At first, she's trying to get me to buy my bus ticket to get up here. Then she said a miracle happened and she got a lot of her stuff out of storage. And they got a truck. And then a few hours later, about 5 in the morning, they show up. And there they are. They parked the truck in front of the house. And she said, and hell, I'm a very smart person. I took pictures of all my stuff in the truck. But she didn't take a picture of the house, stupid. She, to this day, can't remember where she left her stuff.
Well, she left it in that shed behind your other house on that.
Yeah, she don't know where it's at.
I see.
The police are on the way to arrest you. Don't resist. And give me your address. Wait a minute. I thought the police were on the way, Amy.
Well, in any event,
Yeah.
you didn't do anything wrong.
Nah, I'm not worried about it. Anyway, good to talk to you guys. I'm going to edit this thing down, put it up by tonight. And
Thanks for listening.
yep. Boola boola.